Hi everyone, in this tutorial we're going to be going over some of the different ways you can edit 3D meshes in Autodesk Maya. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cube. Just going to click the little cube button. You can also go up here to create polygon primitives and create a cube. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit because it's kind of small. And over here I've got my channel box layer editor already turned on. I'm going to give that a click and come down here to this input polycube 1. So what this is pretty much how you can add width, height, depth, and subdivisions to base shapes. So shapes that have not been edited and that are just created. Once you duplicate or start adding a lot of things to your shape, this becomes a little redundant and unnecessary. So I'm just going to make all my width, height, and depths to 3, just so I have a slightly bigger cube. And then I'm also going to up my width, height, and depth subdivisions. So what this does is it'll automatically create edge loops all the way around my shape. Now all edge loops they are edges that go all the way around a shape. These can be scaled, rotated with mixed results, and moved. These are the only and best way to create sharp edges inside of Maya. So if I hit 3 on the keyboard, which is smooth, or smooth preview, and move this edge, the closer it gets to this outside edge here, the sharper that edge is going to become. So you can see this other side is very soft, this side is a lot more crisp. So having more edge loops will keep geometry nice and crisp. That said, you don't really want to work in smoothed view when you are adding edge loops or maneuvering them. You really want to try to only move in the standard 1 view on the keyboard. So 3 is for checking, 1 is for working. What I'm also going to do here is I'm going to insert some edge loops. So there's a couple ways to do this. So I'm currently in the rigging tab here because I was working on a rig earlier. I'm going to switch to modeling, and I'm going to come up here to mesh tools and insert edge loop. Now I'm going to click the options box because I personally like to have my tool settings docked over here next to my channel box. Not in the right spot. There you are. So now I can click between all of my toolbars and I have my settings here. So I'm going to insert an edge loop. So currently I have it set to relative distance. So this just says like, hey, all the way around, try to keep the distance more or less the same, or relative distance between the vertices and the edge you're adding. Equal distance will try to ensure that the distance is equal. So a good way to show that, we're just going to move this one down a bit. I'm going to go back to insert edge loop. So another way to get to all of these menus up here is to press and hold space and then go to that tool. This is the way I prefer to go to any mesh editing tool, just because to me it's a little faster. I don't have to come all the way up here and hunt for the one I'm looking for. I know it's just right here next to wherever I'm working. So relative distance is it's going to try to keep the distance, so you can see right there it's trying to keep the distance. And equal distant is going to try the same thing, but you can see at the top it's trying to keep it closer to that edge. So that's a really good way to think about that. So I'm just going to Control Z a couple times. And then multiple edge loops says, hey, I want multiple edge loops all the way around. So I'm going to do equal distance. And I'm going to come up here and make a nice sharp corner. So when I hit smooth, I'm going to hit Q, so I'm out of my insert edge loop tool. I'm going to go back to object mode, click it, hit 3, and you can see now this edge here is nice and crisp because it has a nice edge loop here and here at this top. Now, when you are in your insert edge loop, let's say if I wanted to add a bevel to an edge, actually I'm going to hit Q. I'm going to double click on this edge that I just made, this edge loop, and I'm going to do Control Delete. If you just delete a edge loop without holding down Control, all it will delete are the edges that's selected. It will not delete the vertices, which will cause you problems when you're modeling. You do not want extra vertices anywhere. So anytime you need to delete something that you've made, make sure you hold Control. Unless it's a face, you can just click a face and delete it. So I'm going to go back to my edge mode, insert edge loop, and if I hold down Shift, and add an edge loop, see like here, see how it raises my faces? What this does is it says, hey, I want these edge loops to not move the corner pins, so all of the corner edges of my shape, but I do want it to slightly scale all of my other vertices. It's just kind of a neat little function that allows you to add some interest quickly to a shape without having to do more than add an edge loop. So I'm just going to Control Delete a little bit and then go back to object mode. Now another tool that you're going to use quite often is the extrude tools. So to extrude, you can do this on edges or on faces or on whole objects. I'm going to do faces because it's a little easier to see. So I'm going to click this face right here. Actually, I'll do all 4 of these. So because I just standard clicked, I am checking my overall mesh just to make sure that I didn't select anything I didn't want. So sometimes when you click on a face, you can accidentally select multiple. So I just like to give it a nice little tumble, give it a check, or if you really want to make sure that you don't do that, you can hold the Tab button down and click and drag, and it'll only select the faces clicked by your mouse that are hovered under the cursor. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to extrude using Control and E. It is also, where is the button? This button here. Or you can come up here to Edit Mesh, Extrude. I'm personally a fan of using the keyboard shortcuts in Maya. It makes it a little faster, makes it a little bit more streamlined. So Control E is kind of my go-to. So now I have all of these shapes are selected, but if you notice this one right here has my move tool, a rotation circle, and little scale boxes. This is so that if I wanted to, I could move them around. Ooh, I hit the wrong button. I can move them and shift them as needed. I keep hitting Control X, don't do that. You can change the thickness by clicking over the words and dragging. So how much is it going in versus out? We'll go in because I think that's kind of fun. How much do you want to translate it by? In another direction. How much do you want it to be offset? So scaled inward. And then how many divisions do you want it to have as it makes it? This is really nice for if you want to make some crisp edges really fast for your shape. So I'm just Control Zing to get it back. So I'm going to re-extrude. So we're going to do that again. So I'm going to extrude it in. I'm going to offset it just a little bit. I'll go ahead and add my 2 divisions like that, so that I have 3 divisions, because it does include the face of what, or the edges that is moving in the face that you have selected. And then do I want to keep my faces together? Currently it's set to on. If I turn this off, you can see here, it added divisions. So I could take each one of these and scale them to different sizes. So that's a really quick way to get some kind of interesting geometry. And as you saw a second ago, we can move in and scale and make some overall just different shapes. Now holding Control does allow you to move in point values. So if you're like, I keep doing whole numbers, I don't like that, or I'm only doing in 0.5s, holding down Control as you click and drag will fix that. Double-clicking your edges will also allow you to select the whole edge loop, just to kind of explain the process of what's happening here. And you can see I've got some neat geometry already. Now if I wanted to keep the edges up here nice and crisp for this square, I would need to add some edge loops to the outside of my shape. So you can see that's already working a little better. I would also need to add them on the inside of my extruded locations. So you can see that is a lot more crisp. Nice little window. And that is it for extruding and manipulating with edge loops. In the next tutorial, I'll be talking about duplication.